The 1663 earthquake, in my opinion, approaches the size of the New Madrid earthquakes in 1811 and 1812. And I say that for a few reasons. First of all, because of the effects of that earthquake, both in the area where we think it was centered and farther away. We know that French-Canadian trappers and explorers who were canoeing up and down the St. Lawrence River, after that earthquake, canoeing up in the section of the river that today we call the Charlevoix or La Malbaie seismic zone, said that there were so many landfalls and rockfalls and river slumps along the bank that they did not even recognize the area. So clearly the earthquake shaking was so strong there, it caused lots of hillsides to slump down and literally changed the shorelines in that area. In fact, there's a place called Les Éboulements, which means the landslides. And we think those landslides formed in the 1663 earthquake. One of the reasons why I think the 1663 earthquake had such a large magnitude is because of the effects in Roxbury, Massachusetts. Roxbury is about 400 or so miles away from where this earthquake was centered. And the 1663 earthquake reportedly damaged some chimneys in Roxbury at that distance of over 400 miles away. Not only did they feel the main shock, but they actually felt 4 or 5 other shocks that night, which were weaker from all accounts. So that earthquake in 1663, which was able to damage chimneys in Boston, can be compared to an earthquake in 1925. Same area, Charlevoix seismic zone, also felt in Boston, caused people to evacuate some buildings. They were so scared by the shaking. And there was no chimney damage in the greater Boston area, with many, many more structures than were existing in 1663. The earthquake in 1925 was a magnitude 6.25. So we're talking about an earthquake that had to be much stronger than magnitude 6.25 in 1663. The other reason why I think the 1663 earthquake was above magnitude 7 is because today we record earthquake activity along a stretch of the St. Lawrence River that's about 40 miles or about 70 kilometers long. A very, very long stretch of the river has very, very frequent earthquakes. It's the most active area in the northeastern part of North America, and it is the most active area outside of the New Madrid seismic zone. If you look at the number of small earthquakes that get recorded each year in this area, it's very comparable to the number of earthquakes being recorded in the New Madrid seismic zone. Furthermore, the stretch of the New Madrid seismic zone that has earthquakes today ranges out to about 120 kilometers, which would be about 75 miles. The Charlevoix seismic zone stretches about 75 kilometers or about 40 to 45 miles. So it is approaching the length size of the zone that we see in the New Madrid seismic zone. In general, and this is true all over the world in all seismically active areas, the longer the zone of aftershocks, the larger the magnitude of the main shock. So that's why we can take modern earthquake activity, and if we can verify that it's aftershocks of earthquakes that have happened in the past, use it as a way to estimate what the size of those past earthquakes was. There were seismic events that, in my opinion, most likely were aftershocks of the February 5th earthquake, because that's the experience we have today. We have so few earthquakes that happen in our region that if you have a large number of earthquakes take place over a short time span, and a year is a short time span for earthquake activity in New England, the first guess is always to say those must be aftershocks of the strong earthquake that occurred earlier that year. The problem in 1663, of course, is that there are so few people living in eastern North America that we can't get a good geographic coverage of where the earthquakes were felt. What I was doing was I was saying, okay, if we have a record of an earthquake being felt in Quebec, and I also find on that same day a report of an earthquake being felt in Massachusetts, for example, what I do know is that's likely the same earthquake, especially if it's at the same time, and to be felt in those two diverse areas, the earthquake must have been above magnitude 5. And If we had a very, very strong earthquake, aftershocks above magnitude 5 could happen literally for years afterward. So all of the evidence is circumstantial, but I think it makes a strong case.